Добрый день, уважаемые участники семинара. Я рада сегодня приветствовать вас и объявить о втором дне семинара «Микроквалификации как способ реагирования на современные вызовы». Меня зовут Гульнара Исаева, я являюсь национальным координатором программы Европейского Союза «Erasmus+» в Кыргызской Республике. И напоминаю вам, что основными спикерами на нашем двухдневном семинаре являются госпожа Кьяра Финакетти и Кристина Гитулидзе. Вчера, как вы помните, мы рассмотрели понятийные понимание, структуру программ микроквалификации. Сегодня, согласно задачам нашей программы, мы рассмотрим такие вопросы, как признание, качество программ микроквалификации. Ну и последняя наша сессия будет посвящена тому, как можно на практике применить рекомендации по применению микроквалификации на уровне политики в секторе высшего образования. Ну и согласно нашей программе у нас сейчас будет панельное обсуждение таких вопросов, как стратегия реализации программ микроквалификации, внедрение программ микроквалификации в существующие учебные программы и изучение возможностей финансирования и моделей партнерства. Мы подключили спикеров и также экспертов команд по реформе высшего образования с обеих республик для участия в обсуждении. Также, если у вас есть что сказать, поднимите, пожалуйста, руки, и мы будем вам включать микрофон. Dear Chiara and Christina, if you can start the conversation, just maybe some guiding questions to start panel discussion, it would be great, yeah? Уважаемые участники, кто бы хотел начать обсуждение?
Well, maybe good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Happy to be again together today, continuing our discussions from yesterday. I think that maybe we can try to, even if we didn't have a lot of time yesterday for the workshop on designing and implementing micro-credentials, maybe we could build on that discussion, because actually this is what we have tried to do yesterday, to see what higher education institutions should consider when deciding to build micro-credentials in that specific institutions. And as you might remember, we have tried to structure our thinking in several domains. And we said that we should consider how this is being embedded, or how we should develop, first of all, the concept at the strategic level. So to have it as part of the strategy and policy and action plans of the institution. Then we thought about like the main coordinates that we should establish from the early beginning when designing micro-credentials. So would be design principles, minimum standards, and critical information requirements. Also, we have spoke about approaches to learning and teaching, which of course are the core of any study program, to what type of technology we might need in terms of, and here we can think about not only the platform used for delivering the courses, if the case, but also platform related to, recognizing or making transparent the micro-credentials. But also we should think about the specific resources in times of financing, software, or skills of the people involved. Also, we have spoke about industry alignment and skill forecasting and quality assurance and recognition. So more or less, I think we should reflect on all of that in order to find the ways in which a coherent approach to developing and implementing micro-credentials might be put in place. Also, for today's discussion, we should think about partnership and funding. And here, well, in general, higher education institutions are collaborating in different types of partnerships, either with the institutions or either with other types of stakeholders. We might need to reflect what is specific to the micro-credentials provisions. We can think about a larger partnership or more close partnership. We might think about developing together with employers, for example, this type of provision, which is not really the case for the regular study programs, when even if you consult them, then you do not really do it together. So we could think about other institutions. And here we have spoke about yesterday about how important is to actually have a network of institutions which might deliver the micro-credentials, because in this way, first of all, there is recognition among the institutions, and then students, learners can move from one institution to another in order to either access another topics which might not be in their own institution, or either just have a different learning experience. We can also, of course, think about employers and industry, which are very important, as one of the main goals of micro-credentials would be to answer to the skills need by the market, but also with social partners, research and innovation organizations, civil society, employment and social inclusion services, in order to make them known and actually considered when employment policies are being developed. And of course, last but not the least, with local and regional and national authorities. And also, I think we need to speak about funding. And here we have heard yesterday that might be funded by the fees which the learners are paying. And that's, of course, an option. Well, from my own experience is that this might be, of course, an issue, as not everyone has access to, or not everyone affords to pay such fees. And considering that one of the goals of developing such programs would be to make education available to a larger target audience. Other types of fundings should be considered. And of course, here it can come from different projects financed at national or international level. It can come from the companies, which is very important, but that would be somehow restricted to those programs which are answering to the needs of a specific company. But actually, it will be really advisable to also have public funds available, also because that means continuity and predictability when it comes to funds available, and also would support higher education institutions to think and develop strategically, because they wouldn't really depend on the fees that may take from one target group or another. So that would be from me for the moment. I hope that this is enough food for thought, because actually it's up to you to discuss how do you really see this going forward. And of course, I can come in also later.
Thank you very much, Кристина. Спасибо огромное, Кристина. Дорогие участники, кто бы хотел прокомментировать по тем вопросам, которые озвучила Кристина? У нас действительно вчера было очень мало времени на обсуждение, поэтому сейчас у вас есть прекрасная возможность прокомментировать, выразить свою обратную связь и получить комментарии от спикеров. И в чате как раз Киара отправила 5 направлений, да, которые мы могли бы обсудить и которые были озвучены Кристиной. Вы можете по этим направлениям ориентироваться.
Well, I'm not able to see the comments. I mean, I see them, but I don't understand them. So, Gunara, maybe you could check if there are questions. Well, maybe to just add some more few things if you still need some time to think about it. There are a lot of tools, guidance towards developing and implementing micro-credentials. And of course, those documents would be shared with the participants, so you still have the opportunity to go through them and reflect further. Maybe just to go very quickly through the recommendation that the European Council of Europe have set for the member states in order to develop micro-credentials. So there are some points which are quite practical, which are also being developed in the recommendation itself. So you could really go through it because they are really very helpful, I think. The document, it's kind of setting the main areas to think about. First of all, of course, we need to have a definition, which normally should be in the legislation at the national level. I understand such definition exists for Kazakhstan, but not for the other countries. Also, we have seen yesterday that there might be different definitions, which I suppose they are all good. You need to see which is the best one in a specific national context. Then it's very important to have kind of a standardization for those types of provisions for obvious reasons in order to enhance recognition, transparency, and the trust of both employers and beneficiaries when it comes to micro-credentials. And here we need to think about the learning outcomes, the workload, using a system which is recognizable at international level, if possible, the level and the cycle, if applicable, so the level in the qualification framework, the type of assessment, the mode of delivery, so the form of participation in the learning activity, and also the type of quality assurance that was used in order to, in the process of development, the micro-credential itself. So that is really related to the course itself. But then, as we said yesterday, it is, in order to be successful and have impact with this type of provision, for sure there is a need for a larger framework where the higher education institutions are just a part, but then we have all the partners that I have underlined earlier. So it should be part of the general framework for education and training in the country. And here it should be a coherence between how formal, non-formal, and informal learning is being provided, and also how different types of non-formal and informal learning is being recognized as part of this goal to have to enable the learners to achieve a formal degree or a larger degree at a certain point. There should be support to quality assurance, because of course there might be some, if for the formal learning, there is generally a trust that they are of enough quality. Here that might be doubts. So there should be transparency about how quality of education have been thought and assured. As I said, they should formally be part of the education and at the national level, and also of different type of policies that the authorities are being developed for development of skills. it should be also part of the employment and active labor market policies. Like, for example, if, I don't know, employers have a discount in their fees to the state for investing money in training their employees, micro-credentials to also be part of this. Also, there should be a lot of information and guidance provided to the beneficiaries related to micro-credentials, and that, of course, it's in the remit of the higher education institutions, but also it should be incorporated in all type of lifelong learning guidance services, like the Minister of Labor putting in places, or regional offices for that. Depending on the specific arrangements in each country. So we really see that a successful policy in the field of micro-credentials goes a lot beyond the borders of specific higher education institution. So I will stop again and hope to also hear which are your thoughts on all of that.
Кристина, спасибо огромное за дополнительные материалы. Уважаемые участники, вы можете скопировать себе ссылки. Киара отправила в общий чат ссылки на европейские документы, которые будут вам служить как справочный документ, да, рекомендации Совета Европейского Союза и guidelines, руководства по внедрению микроквалификаций. Но если эта тема действительно новая и у вас нет комментариев, тогда мы можем двигаться дальше по программе. Нет, появился один вопрос. Добрый день. На каких этапах организации и проведения обучения вовлечены представители бизнес-сообщества? Вопрос от Айджаркын Осмоновой. Представители бизнес-сообщества.
Maybe I can start to answer, and then Christina can support me and integrate. So if I understood correctly, the question is at which stage, right, of the designing. So in the, let's say, in the, as we said yesterday, in the view of the Council recommendation, micro-credentials are also seen, one of the angles in which they are also seen, they are seen very much as this kind of bridge within the labor market. So of course, I mean, that's the answer to this question is very much to the institutional strategy and to the what, let's say, are the objective and the goals the institution would like to pursue with when offering this micro-credential. But if it's a partnership, then I would suggest that it would be good that they are involved since the very beginning, let's say, since the designing and the planning, etc. But I mean, probably the very first question is why this micro-credential? What are the objectives? Which target I would like to, which learners I would like to target? Because of course, if the target are employers, maybe employees also of this business, etc., or of a sector of the labor market, then it would be good that the micro-credential is in a sense co-designed together with the industry. Another model is to involve, we spoke about this yesterday, at a later stage, just as teaching staff, for instance. But this very much depends on, let's say, what we want to achieve, and also what are the learning outcomes. So that would be the let's say the answer, at least from my side.
Well, if I may add just a small comment, generally there is a requirement in quality assurance procedures, which are based on the European standards and guidelines, of course, because it's not for every type of quality assurance systems, to involve stakeholders practically at all levels of developing, implementing, and revising any study program. The answer would be for the early beginning and all the time throughout the life cycle of a program. Because, well, even if well, normally when a higher education institution is providing a program, especially when it's funded by the state, that means it has to be an objective. And that one of those objectives would be to answer to the requirements of the market, no matter the subject which is being considered. Also, you need to show added value in better graduates, better skills for the future employees. And of course, the market should be part of this. So unless there is a program which is really paid by the student and it's really very closely related to hers or his personal development, that means for all the others, it's really relevant to involve employers and do it together with them. It's true that they are not the only stakeholders. Learners are the stakeholder, the society, authorities. What is important is all the time to make sure that you really find the right information from the right employer. And at the end of the day, would be the institution to really put that together and decide what to take from each target group, because also their opinions might be divergent, so contradictory. So I don't know, an employer might want more practical information, while you as an institution would think that you still need some fundamental knowledge for that study program. So you should really find the right balance and make sure that you really consider the relevant opinions in the relevant points related to your program.
Дорогие Киара, Кристина, спасибо вам огромное за детальный ответ на этот вопрос. Так как нет больше желающих комментировать и вопросов в чате нет, мы тогда двигаемся дальше по программе. И по программе у нас презентация от Киары Финакети по вопросу признаний, да, микроквалификаций.
Gulnara, I'm sorry, I have seen a raised hand. Maybe I'm wrong. Svetlana wanted to say something earlier. So yeah, she's here.
Светлана Рустамовна, please.
Да. Сейчас, секунду. Да, если позволите, я тогда буквально 2 слова. Я уже хотела отказаться, поскольку Гульнара не увидела, но ничего страшного. Если позволите, я бы продолжила вот мысль наших коллег европейских и, пользуясь случаем, вот развела бы ту идею, которую я говорила вчера, да, во время информации о том, как мы пилотировали наши микрокурсы. Действительно, они очень разные и очень сильно, на наш взгляд, зависят от целевой аудитории. То есть, когда мы готовили, например, курсы для micro-credentials для наших студентов, это был один подход. Когда мы говорили о micro-credentials, например, для трудовых мигрантов, то нам пришлось опросить порядка 2500 человек для того, чтобы понять не только, какие запросы нужны, но и то, какими навыками они владеют уже, и плюс еще проанализировать, через какие инструменты они потом смогут иметь доступ к нашим курсам. Потому что было очень важно, чтобы те инструменты, которые мы даем, например, на платформе, они могли бы легко использоваться этой целевой группой. Поэтому там, на мой взгляд, вот очень правильно коллеги заметили, на самых ранних уже этапах нужны исследования потребностей целевой группы, исследования потребностей работодателей, и параллельно еще и то, какими способами мы будем доставлять эту информацию, как мы будем работать с ними. И вот как вчера я тоже замечала уже, то есть, скажем, если часть micro-credentials у нас направлена на наших же студентов, которые у нас обучаются, и для них есть другие инструменты и способы обратной связи и консультативной поддержки, то те курсы, которые у нас были направлены на трудовых мигрантов, они потребовали у нас поиска дополнительных инструментов. Вот я вчера уже упоминала, что мы пытаемся сейчас запустить, кроме стандартной поддержки, еще и искусственный интеллект, кибернаставника. То есть в каждом, мне кажется, тут нету прямо, ну, есть, конечно, рамка, но в каждом конкретном случае понадобятся еще дополнительные исследования, анализ и поиск дополнительных инструментов. Спасибо.
Спасибо, Светлана Рустамовна. Тогда дальше Киара. You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Then I will start with the recognition part, and after maybe we can take this, we can come back on this point, because I think this point of, I mean, following Christina and Svetlana line of thought, I think that this continuous involvement in all the life cycle of the micro-credential of the different stakeholders is key, also in the assessment, for instance, and in the review, let's say, of the program at the end. But for the moment, okay, I will, let's focus now on recognition. I will share my screen. Just one moment. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. So we now, let's say in the next hours or so, we will focus on two of the key commitments of the Bologna process, that are quality assurance and recognition. Let's start a little bit with the recognition, and just to refresh our memory. Of course, I mean, all the work of the Bologna process, actually we can start the work of the Bologna process with the Magna Carta Universitatum, but let's say the first official document of the Bologna process is the Bologna Declaration in 1999, that set the objective of the European area of higher education. And these objectives are the adoption of a system of easily readable and comparable degrees, also through the implementation of the diploma supplement, the adoption of a system essentially based on two main cycles, undergraduate and graduate. And then we know that after this, with the relevance of the research part, the third cycle, the PhD cycle, was added. The establishment of a system of credits, the promotion of mobility. This is at the core of the Bologna process and of the European higher education area. The promotion of European cooperation in quality assurance, with the view to developing comparable criteria and methodologies, and of course the promotion of the necessary European dimension in higher education. So here we can see that the objective and what now we are used to call the three key commitments of the Bologna process, that are qualification framework and the CTS, the recognition of qualification in line with the Lisbon Recognition Convention, and the quality assurance. So let's now focus on recognition of micro-credentials. So what we can say, I mean, one way to see this is that after more than 20 years of Bologna process working on comparability and recognition of degrees, we see now an effort to try to move a step forward in recognition of a variety of provision, lifelong learning provision, smaller courses, etc., to better serve at the end of the day the learner. There is a very nice sentence that was developed in a project on recognition of prior learning, that this sentence says that nobody should study again what he or she already knows. That it's a very nice sentence, but it's a little bit more difficult to put this fully in practice. So the idea to give transparency to a number of training provision goes in the direction to improve the understanding of the value of the skills and of the learning that a learner has acquired. So regarding recognition of micro-credential, this was a topic that was that is of course in the Council recommendation. This was a topic that was also extensively discussed in the Microball project. So in the European higher education area, there are a number of publications on this. The consensus around recognition of microcredential is that if all the constitutive elements of microcredential are properly displayed, so if there is transparent information and enough information on the microcredential, and we can say that enough information is the information in line with the constitutive element of the microcredential as they are described in the Council recommendation. If all these elements are there, then it is possible to assess microcredential with, let's say, standard recognition procedure in line with the Lisbon Recognition Convention. Now, just to, again, maybe not of us are familiar with the Lisbon Recognition Convention. So you know that in the European region, there is a convention, an international convention, regulating recognition within European region. This convention is so-called the Lisbon Recognition Convention. Actually, now we know that there are a number of conventions in each UNESCO region. So we have one for Europe, we have one recognition convention in Asia Pacific, the so-called Tokyo Convention. We have one convention entered into force in Latin America and Caribbean, one entered into force in Africa, and one in Arab states. The text was adopted, but this is not yet entered into force. So those are regional conventions regulating recognition within the region. And now there is the recently entered into force Global Convention on Recognition, that is a kind of umbrella convention regulating inter-regional recognition, so recognition between different regions. So coming back now to the Lisbon Recognition Convention that dates back to 1997, so before the starting of the Bologna process, the Lisbon Recognition Convention states a number of principles for recognition that are now well, let's say, developed, implemented. Of course, there's still room for implementation, but they are accepted and they are normal practice in European higher education area. And so regarding microcredential, they can be assessed according to Lisbon Recognition Convention principle if all the elements, all the information, all the needed information are there. What happens if all the needed information is not there? Then how we can do? So the consensus is that it is still possible to recognize microcredential, but then the way to do this is through a recognition of prior learning procedure. So recognition of prior learning and validation of non-formal and informal learning. So this is the idea. So if, as we say, all the elements are there, microcredential can be recognized, but then we need information about the assessment, about the level, the workload, if possible, verification of authenticity, etc. Of course, in this sense, transparency of information is the key point for fair assessment of microcredential, and this is a point that we tackled already yesterday. Of course, digitalization can play a role in this, supporting fast and fair assessment of degrees in general, and of course also of microcredential. There is also one point, a tool was developed, a methodology actually before the tool was developed to assess robustness of information on microcredential. And this was done around 7 elements. And the quality of the course, so how the quality of the course is assured, verification of the certificate, so in which way it is possible to verify authenticity of the certificate, the level of the course according to the national qualification framework or to the European meta framework, to the cycles, Bologna cycles, EHA cycles, or the European qualification framework, learning outcomes, workload, assessment, so the way the study results are tested, and identification of this participant. This is the so-called evaluate methodology that was developed in the evaluate project, in the Erasmus Plus evaluate project, and we will have a kind of hands-on exercise later on today on this methodology. Another point that is very, very important, yesterday we discussed about catalogs and register. It is very, very important that the information is accessible. So the information on micro-credential offered is there. And what would be very important is to have them accessible also in an historical perspective, because we know that qualification, credential, degrees will circulate well after the end of the program. So it is very important that or either on the website of the institution or on a national catalog when available, it is kept information also of previously offered courses and micro-credential. And another point is explore the possibility of recognition agreement on micro-credential among education providers. This can help very much recognition. So to inform transparently before taking the course that the course can be recognized, or part of the course can be recognized, and for instance in a bigger courses, or that can be stacked in another credential. I make you an example. Many platforms that offer online courses, they have agreement with higher education institution. So if I take the course and I successfully pass also the final assessment, the final exam, then this course can be recognized in a degree, for instance. Okay, regarding recognition of prior learning, here, I mean, that's in line with the procedures of RPL. So the point here is to use validation of learning outcomes from non-formal and informal learning only when this is really needed. So only when not all the information is there and there is not reliable evidence on the learning outcomes. In this sense, of course, there is a need for well-established RPL and validation procedure, both at national and institutional level. One point of consensus is also that RPL procedure for micro-credentials should be fit for purpose. So it should be not too burdensome for higher education institution. And this could be done also looking to experiences, different projects. I mentioned it before, this RPL in practice project. Now there is a network in the European higher education area regarding RPL. And in this sense, also mutual exchange of practices and peer support, it's very important to enhance RPL recognition of prior learning procedure. And of course, recognition is and the RPL procedure as well, they are usually covered also by institutional quality assurance approach. But on this, I'm sure Christina will give a more, will deepen more this topic on quality assurance. And this, in this sense, it's very important, the role of higher education institution as on one side gatekeeper. So I mean, if there is no transparency of information, etc., it's very important to assess that the competencies and the skills the person claimed to have are really there. But on the other side, also as a gate opener. As we said before, micro-credentials are also seen as a way to really value and give transparency to other provisions that are not only the full degrees. One point also, because this was also a point that was discussed yesterday, in the microball context, for instance, one point of discussion was also that micro-credential could also be the outcome of an RPL procedure. So, for instance, I have some learning outcome. I've been working, for instance, 10 years, 15 years in an industry, in an employer, and I have some skills. Then I go to the university to do an RPL procedure, and the outcome could be a micro-credential that, in a sense, give an assessed and reliable picture of what are my skills and knowledge on a certain specific topic. I mean, this idea is very interesting. This was not really developed in the microball project, but I mean, I would like just to, let's say, raise also this point that to my knowledge is not yet implemented, but this was also a point that we discussed and that is captured in the discussion of microball project. Okay, now moving to stackability. Stackability is one recurrent term around micro-credential. First of all, what we mean with stackability. So stackability means the possibility to combine different micro-credentials and to build logically upon each other. So under the term stackability, there is, of course, the possibility of credit recognition. That is something that higher education institutions usually do to recognize part of the some credits to have access in, for instance, in a degree. And then, of course, according also to the national framework, national legislation, there can be some limitation on this. Another possibility is to use this kind of pre-stacked packages of micro-credential, integrated them into study courses. And this was a little bit the example of the platform, online platform we were referring to before. One point that I have to underline is that at least in the microball context, there were no consensus on the fact that micro-credential can be stacked to reach a full degrees. Well, this was a point of discussion, but the idea, as we described also yesterday, is that micro-credential are complementary and not alternative to a full degree. So the idea is that they should not see as a way to, let's say, accumulate them to reach a full degree, but either to complement or to upskill, reskill, to acquire new knowledge, new competencies, or to update some skills that the learner already has. Of course, recognition it should be easier within the same institution. So if I award one micro-credential, then reasonably we can assume that this micro-credential can be more easily recognized within the same institution, but it will be very, very important in the, let's say, in the interest of the learner, that this micro-credential can be recognized also by other institutions. And of course, here there is the key point of alternative providers, because as soon as one micro-credential is awarded by one higher education institution, usually we consider this in a different way than a micro-credential that come from alternative providers. So here also the point of transparency of information is very important. And this is the point that if the credential is not considered a qualification according to the rule of the system, and in many cases as according to, let's say, the higher education system regulation, this of course could be more challenging. And again, the key point here is relevance of transparent information for students and learners. Just to go very quickly, we referred also to this yesterday, that digitalization can support fast and fair recognition, not mandatory, we said already yesterday, so this is just a point in general that can support secure student exchange. Very quickly, those are some the latest policy, the latest ministerial communique. They all refer to digital technologies. In Yerevan communique, it was digital technologies for teaching and learning, while in Paris and in Rome communique, they are more also digitalization of student data, secure and trusted exchange of data, etc. Why digitalization? We already said to support recognition, to ensure fast verification of authenticity, to support mobility of students. Maybe the last point here is that, let's say, there should be at national level, at institutional level, clear strategy and guidelines for digitalization of student data, of qualification, and also of micro-credential. What is important also is that this element, these strategies for digitalization are in line with the key principle agreed at the international level: security of data, privacy protection, minimization of data, etc. And also according to the principle of interoperability. This is very important in the view of the student interest, of the learner interest. I can have my platform, but it's very important that what I award to student, it's shareable and can be used also in other platforms. So the point of interoperability is a key one. So, and I will stop here for the moment. I will share my screen and give back the word to Gulnara.
Thank you very much, Киара. Спасибо огромное, Киара. Это был вопрос по признанию. И дальше по программе мы идем к следующей презентации Кристины про внутреннее и внешнее обеспечение качества программ микроквалификаций. Если, конечно, у вас нет вопросов, да, но в чате я смотрю, вопросов нет, тогда продолжаем дальше.
Maybe we can still discuss on both issues also after my presentation of quality assurance. As you know, quality assurance and recognition are very closely interrelated. So I think it's good to consider them together. As Chiara mentioned at the beginning of her presentation, quality assurance was part of the Bologna process from the early beginning. So starting with the Bologna Declaration. And now, 25 years ago, you see that we have a new logo related to the Bologna process, which is underlying that this year we are celebrating 25 years of implementation. We have a quite comprehensive system, which is based both on policy documents and structures which are functioning at the level of the European higher education area. And speaking about structures, we have, of course, the quality assurance agencies, which are working together within the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, which is the stakeholder organization that represents this key commitment at the level of the European higher education area.
Christina, excuse me, your sound is interrupting. Maybe connection is weak?
Well, it sounds good. It's different from before. Maybe move to another place. I don't know. So it's worse than before.
Yeah, before it was better.
So let me maybe try to move to see or to change to another connection. Just a moment. It's not working better. Do you hear me better now?
Yes, let's try.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, so as I said, we have structures and ENQA and ECAR. ECAR is so it's now better.
Yes, now is better.
Okay, so let me try to move to another spot and maybe it works better. It may be an issue in this situation. Just one moment. How about now? Does it work better?
Yes, it's okay now.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so we have ECA and we have ECAR, which is a register of quality assurance agencies which are called trustworthy, and that means they are working in compliance with the ESGs. And speaking about the ESGs, we have policy documents well, not really policy documents, but documents which are setting standards, and these are European standards and guidelines, which have been originally developed and approved in 2005, have been revised in 2015, and now we will start a new process of revision that will take place by the next ministerial conference in 2027. We also have the European approach, which is applied for quality assurance of joint programs. As I said, we are 25 years later, and if we want to have a picture of how quality assurance systems have been developed across the European higher education area, we see that we have a quality assurance system or agency in every member country, and there are 49 members. But only 40 are working in compliance with the ESGs. In another 9 countries, there are still steps to be taken in order to achieve that key commitment. When speaking about working in compliance with the ESGs, the diagram is considering that to be accomplished when the quality assurance agency is registered in ECHA. Well, so that's the picture that we are working with, and of course, what we need now to reflect, as we also have spoke yesterday, is if we need quality assurance procedures also at the level of micro-credentials. Well, the immediate answer would be somehow yes, because quality assurance is a key commitment. It's so important for for enabling trust at the level of well, systems, higher education systems and institutions. So you wouldn't see an immediate reason why we could give up on that when related to micro-credentials. What we need to think is how to make it so that it's the right balance between encouraging, promoting, developing micro-credentials, while also have the regulation needed in order to provide trust in these type of provisions, especially as we are at the beginning of systematically develop systems of micro-credentials provisions. From the outcomes of the QA Fit project, which is a project looking into the fitness for purpose of the current quality assurance procedures and the steps for the future, it came out that we have at this moment the majority of quality assurance agencies which are conducting both institutional and program level evaluation on a regular basis. Some of them are using one of the approaches, but nevertheless, the majority use a combination of those 2 approaches. So we cannot really see a moving towards one of the 2 types. And that was kind of a constant evolution in the last, let's say, 15 years. So we need to see, should we think about program level or should we go more towards institutional level quality assurance procedures when we speak about external quality assurance, of course. We have worked, and you have yesterday also heard already on this topic within the Bologna follow-up group in the Microball project. Also, there are other projects which are taking as part of their activities to look at quality assurance of micro-credentials. And I have mentioned QA Fit, but also there is another project, I mean QA, which is having a working package on micro-credentials quality assurance. And I will try to summarize very briefly the main outcomes of those projects, which whose results are quite recognized at the level of the member countries in the European higher education area. And anyways, I think they are a very good example of good practice that can be applied in any context. So the Microport project very clearly concluded that we need quality assurance to be in place. When we speak about higher education institutions, of course, we mean at the internal level. Being members to the European higher education area, we should observe the standards and guidelines in the European standards and guidelines, and the relevant part related to internal quality assurance is part 1, where, as well, I suppose you might be familiar with, we have different standards which are very clearly establishing what we need to consider when developing internal quality assurance processes. Well, this being said or set, then we have to see how to do it, and we need to find the right approach, considering the general characteristics of a micro-credential, but also considering that it might be several types of micro-credentials. So we need to have adapted procedures. Of course, when we look at a standalone micro-credential, so a program which is being developed specifically and only as a micro-credential, we might have procedures which would be more elaborated than where that micro-credential is part of a degree program, which of course was already accredited at a certain point. Also, we need to look at the specificities related to the mode of delivery, as we would have different requirements for a face-to-face program than for one which is delivered in a hybrid or only on online mode. Generally, as you know, study programs or institutions have to pass, and also by the provisions of the ESGs, have to pass through a regular periodical evaluation, be it at 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. That depends on the national regulations. And if the micro-credentials are going to be evaluated using the ESGs, of course, they should answer to the same condition, that it should be a frequency, which can be, again, smaller or longer, depending on the context, let's say. As you know already, quality of education is in the responsibility of higher education institutions. They should have the main responsibility for putting in place procedures to assure that their provisions are of enough quality, and this principle, which is a very important principle of the ESGs, applies also to the micro-credentials, but maybe even more than for a regular provision, where, of course, there are more regulations where that might be conditions set at the national level, considering that the diplomas which are being provided by different institutions have to be comparable. So in this case, there might be a micro-credential which is delivered by only one institution. So for sure, they should have the main responsibility regarding the quality of that provision. That means, in this context, that external quality assurance has to focus on having, well, verifying that the internal approach for quality assurance is reliable and well built. So if that works, for sure, also the quality of the provision would be, well, acceptable or according to standards. We need, as we also spoke yesterday, to consider that for sure we cannot have the same procedures for a micro-credential, which might have like few credits, so 5, 6, 15 or 20, as we heard yesterday. The same with a full degree program, which is 240 credits maybe. So This should be adapted to the length of the micro-credential and the need that such provision keep up with the innovations or the requirements of the market. So it should not last like 9 months or 6 months to start such a provision. Well, keeping very clearly in mind to find this right balance between promoting micro-credentials and the need to regulate them. So in order to put this in practice, the Microball project have come up with some recommendations. They should not be encouraged to establish program-level procedures for micro-credentials. We should focus or move towards institutional evaluation, in which also the micro-credential provisions are being embedded, and they should be subject to a very strong internal quality assurance. It might be useful for the institutions to develop a set of guidance at the national level, maybe to be agreed by the Authority for Higher Education, the Quality Assurance Agency, and all higher education institutions, in order to kind of enhance trust that the quality of micro-credentials is similar to that of full degree programs. As you know, student involvement is a mandatory condition for quality assurance, for internal and external quality assurance by the European standards and guidelines. They have to be part of every procedure in higher education, and that it's quite easy to achieve for a regular program because students are there for a longer time. It's easy to reach them. Well, might be not that easy for online programs, but for the face-to-face, it's quite obvious that this can happen. And the institution can take different type of measures in order to make sure they are meaningfully involved in the quality assurance procedure. For micro-credentials, it would not be that easy, of course. When you have a student which is part of a program for 1 month, let's say, and then she or he is gone, it will be difficult to reach to them and to kind of involve them maybe in future procedures. But nevertheless, all the efforts should be done in order to involve in a certain way beneficiaries in the quality assurance procedure, either at internal or external level. Transparency, we have heard that yesterday and today very many times, is very important in order to build in trust, and maybe at the moment where micro-credentials will be well known, already applied, let's say at a larger scale, and the quality of graduates will be already checked or let's say verified by them being employed like in many places, we will get maybe to the point where quality assurance would not be that important. So we could have lesser procedures or easier. So it is very important to enhance transparency, to make sure all the relevant information are being communicated very transparent. And well, in the case of quality assurance, for sure, how that has been done has to be clear to everyone. In that sense, it would be useful to have registers of providers which are trusted, which have passed to a certain procedure of quality assurance. For higher education institution, that is not the issue. Of course, they are among those providers, but it will also be important to have catalogs which go maybe beyond only one institution and are like maybe set at the national level with courses which are trusted, and that means they have passed again a certain type of quality assurance as decided by the relevant regulation at the national level. We need also to consider that micro-credentials might be delivered especially in online or hybrid mode. That means we have this specific type of delivery, which use digital tools. So we need to consider those specificities of this type of delivery, not only when designing and implementing the program, but also when we set quality assurance procedures, either at internal or external level, how actually we do also for the regular programs. So we need to look at if we think about some particular aspects, the digital tools which are using, the resources, so materials, study materials which are available in digital format and adapted to this type of format, specific pedagogies or assessment methods, special support systems for the students. We spoke about that a lot yesterday. Having the right resources, having the right trained professors, but also continuous support for even accessing the digital tools. And also additional and specific guidance for all those involved, either teaching staff, administrative staff, those which have to maintain the platforms and so on. So we need to really look, in comparison with the general criteria or indicators used for the provisions in the higher education institution, if there are additional aspects which has to be observed when it comes to micro-credentials which are being delivered using digital tools, or other online or hybrid. Moving now to specificities of internal quality assurance of lifelong learning provisions, which micro-credentials might be considered as part of. We also see here, as for external quality assurance, these two types of programs, those which are standalone or those which are part of the degree programs. In the case that these are part of the degree programs, of course, they will be subject to the regular internal quality assurance of that program, of that specific program. That means you wouldn't need additional internal procedures, or in the case that this is decided, in order to look at the specificities which might arise from this specific type of program, that can be really very, very light. We see that many higher education institutions have also provisions for internal quality assurance that looks into the procedure which is used in order to put together, to decide which part of the study programs or of the course is to be delivered as a micro-credential. So how this framework of courses is being developed as a structure at the level of the higher education institution. So that procedure should also be considered, not only the programs themselves. If we are looking a little bit at the criteria, we have, of course, indicators which are related to the way that the learning outcomes and the workload are being defined, the assessment method or the transparency of information, or the teaching staff involved, the learning resources. So these are general criteria that you would find for any program, and of course they will apply to the micro-credential itself. But also we might look at what is specific for a micro-credential. So I mean, even if we do that for the program in general, we do not seek to have really new things, but we really have to see it from a different perspective when it comes to micro-credentials. And here we are looking at the needs of the labor market or the learner target group. Also, how this provision is part of the institutional strategy and policies, and if the mode of delivery that have been chosen is the best one, considering the objectives or the specific learning outcomes of the program. Well, in the case when these are standalone micro-credentials, so not part of a program. That means they would be part of the higher education institution lifelong learning provision. So they might be covered by internal quality assurance procedures specific to this type of programs. In general, this can be lighter than what is being applied for the full degree programs from the reasons that I have mentioned earlier. However, it is important for the institution to verify if the internal quality assurance arrangements are still valid when it comes to the micro-credentials, which might be a new type of provision for a specific higher education institution. So we might look specifically of the process in which, through which that micro-credentials have been approved. If that took into consideration the needs of the learner, so if that was developed on demand, if there is a partnership in this developmental process, if it has to be or it should be stackable, how can be well included in the larger procedures that the institution is putting in place. As we said, we do not really need additional burden related to the credentials and how this should be seen from the periodical evaluation point of view. When looking at internal quality assurance of lifelong learning, we might look at different type of indicators, as I also mentioned before. Important ones would be, and are being seen by the institutions and quality assurance agencies which were part of a survey through which those practices have been identified. So the important criteria would be learning outcomes, transparent assessment methods, and information transparency. So as we also have seen before. But when it comes to micro-credentials, we might look to also another things which are specific or which should be seen differently for this type of provisions. So we need to, for a degree program it's clear, but here we need to see if there is an indication to the qualification level, if the teaching staff, all staff involved is trained with the specificities of this type of program, if there is interdisciplinarity or innovation, as we've seen yesterday, that's an occasion to really embed the state-of-the-art technology or information in the specific field. If the delivery mode, the teaching methods, the pedagogy is adapted to the intended learning outcomes, if there are learning resources which are accessible for all type of learners, if it's being delivered in partnership, then we need to really look to see how is this shared, which are the activities which are being delivered by each partner, if there are teaching or experts from the partners which are being invited to provide input during the program. So we really need to look at the quality of the partnership. For the higher education institution itself, it's much clearer, but then we have to see also if there are external partners into that. If the learner expectations are being met, and if there are constant feedback approaches which are being put in place in order to really find out what has to be improved. Moving now to the external quality assurance of lifelong learning provisions, so also of micro-credentials, we have seen that it's advisable to organize it at the institutional level, and several approaches have been identified in that case. For example, in the institutional evaluation, there is a specific standard which is related to micro-credentials. So it as examples of issues which are being considered it might look at the internal quality assurance approach within the institution considering lifelong learning, or to specific parts of the delivery of the program, which is the mode of delivery, if they are aligned with the strategic goals of the institution, or how they respond to the needs of the society or the employers or of the learner. In other cases, we can see that for lifelong learning, we have the exact standards and procedures used in program accreditation, and that's an example from Malta. They have 11 internal quality assurance standards that apply no matter the level of the program, including for formal higher education. We see that this is not, I mean, not all quality assurance agencies have in their remit to evaluate lifelong learning. To a large extent, there are only less than, well, around 26%, and to some extent, there are 50% of agencies that have been part in this study, which said that they have provisions for external quality assurance. In terms of the future, we see that even those agencies which never have evaluated lifelong learning have in their plans to add it as part of their institutional evaluation procedure. Some others which cover are looking at the internal quality assurance of lifelong learning. They intend to put more emphasis on the part which is related to micro-credentials, and those which are already doing that are planning to revise it and try to come up with more relevant criteria. So we see that quality assurance of micro-credentials is in the attention of quality assurance agencies, and trying, well, those which are not doing that plan to do it in the future. Those which are doing that already want to change their procedures in order to make it more fit for purpose. So we have seen that some of the quality assurance agencies still are looking at the program level, which really is not advisable, as it has been previously underlined. But also, if this happens, maybe a good way to go would be to evaluate study programs at the level of the scientific field, and then, like, for example, evaluate once all type of programs, including lifelong learning and micro-credentials, which are being developed and implemented by the institution in a specific study field. Trying now to conclude, well, instead of conclusions, in the IMICA project, because the original objective was to come up with some guidance on how to develop quality assurance procedures for micro-credentials. We had already some guidance from the microbowl, and the original intention was to come with more specific things to be considered. At the end of the day, it was decided that this might be too prescriptive. It might be difficult to come up with elements that would apply to the variety of such programs which are in place in different countries or in different institutions. So it was considered like more appropriate to develop some questions to be considered by institutions or quality assurance agencies when they plan to develop internal or external quality assurance procedure. You as an institution should start from the scope and objective of offering micro-credentials, which of course it's anyways the basic charters, specificities of the program that should be embedded in the internal quality assurance approach, which normally is already in place in the institution. So what we have to change in order to address relevantly also the micro-credentials. We have to see that differently, as I said, for standalone or part of the program micro-credentials. We have to see if there is a micro-credential offered in partnership with another institution, an employer, or another organization, or another type of provider. What to add in order to see that part of the provision. And also if there is any other factor that might be relevant for a specific institution. When it comes to quality assurance agencies, we speak about the role of agencies in supporting micro-credentials provisions. So we do not want to be in the way of developing such study programs. We need to look to the current quality assurance procedures in place to see what we need to adapt, what we really need to add to what is there already in order to not put much more burden on the institution with this type of procedure. And of course, as the institutions, the higher education institutions are not the only providers, we need to see in the future how the quality assurance procedures could also apply to alternative providers. There are also questions for the authorities, but I have left them out as might not be really relevant for our discussion. That would be everything that I wanted to share regarding quality assurance, and of course we can also discuss further during questions or whatever we need to clarify more than that. Thank you very much for your patience.
Кристина, спасибо огромное за презентацию подробную, где мы увидели модели, да, обеспечения качества на примере нескольких стран. Я напоминаю участникам, что у нас будет отдельная сессия для вопросов и ответов, да, целый час после завершения презентации от наших спикеров. Согласно программе мы двигаемся дальше, и сейчас у нас презентация от Киары Финакьети, тренинг по оцениванию и признанию результатов, да, микроквалификаций.
Yes, thanks, Gulnara. And let's say now we have a very brief presentation. Actually, we have a little bit more hands-on activity to, in a sense, conclude this part on QA and recognition. And we would like to engage a little bit you actually now in this in a small exercise that we would like to do together with you. I will just share again my screen to show what we to explain, let's say, the exercise we are going to play together. So as we said, I mean, there are a number of tools for recognition, and as Christina said, recognition and quality assurance are strictly interrelated. One of the tools that we would like to present and to use together with you is the so-called micro evaluator tool. As you remember, we said that there was a methodology developed in the Erasmus Plus Evaluate project, in the Erasmus Plus funded Evaluate project, that was looking to elaborate a methodology to assess robustness of information regarding micro-credential. And in the framework of this, of a follow-up project, it was developed also a tool, a kind of online tool to assess robustness of information around these seven elements of the qualification. If you remember, quality of study program, verification of the certificate, level of the micro-credential, learning outcomes, workload, the assessment, the way study results are tested, and identification of the participant. And you can see that this was developed through a traffic light model. So basically, the idea is look into a credential, to a micro-credential. The question is there information about quality of the study program? If yes, what kind of quality underpin the study program, etc., etc. So this is the tool, the online tool that we are going to use together in a moment, that was developed by NAFIC, by the Dutch NICNAG Center, in the framework of this Erasmus Plus project. And basically, the tool has a set of questions around these 7 elements of the micro-credential. And for each of them, you will be requested to answer to a few questions to understand if the information displayed is enough and it's enough reliable and robust and consistent to give a good assessment of the micro-credential. So if the final result, for instance, will be all green, then yes, fine, recognition is possible according to Lisbon Recognition Convention principle. If it's red, mostly red, the result, then, well, most probably recognition with, according to the LRC principle, will not be possible. So most probably we will need to go with the RPL, with the recognition of prior learning procedure. And if the result is a mix of colors, then it's very much up to us to decide if we can, for instance, give priority to certain criteria compared to other, or if we can accept that not all are met. So then, I mean, here we need to take some decision. This is also a kind of nice tool also to self-reflect in a sense and self-assess the information we award on micro-credentials. So actually this could be also a useful tool to reflect on how many information and which type and quality of information we need to attach to micro-credential we award. And now we will test this tool on one micro-credential that will be the Martyr micro-credential here. So this is an example that came from Italy, from us. We as Italian NICNAG Center, as CIMEA, we actually awarded the micro-credential course to higher education institution staff working in recognition. So staff from offices of international relationship, students' office, etc. On topics on credential evaluation and on recognition of qualification. We did this together with one Italian university, Università Europea di Roma, and at the end of our study program of this micro-credential, we awarded this micro-credential certificate. As you can see, the parchment, let's say, on the left side, and the micro-credential supplement, we call it like this, on the right side. So what we now would like to ask you is to go on the micro-evaluator tool. I will post this in the chat, so you have the link. Okay, so now you can go here, you can open yourself the link to the micro-evaluator tool. And I will now share again my screen with the bigger qualification so that you can see better the content of the qualification. Okay, this is the micro-credential supplement. I will make it a little bit bigger. So maybe I can start with the parchment, let's say. So this is, you can see, of course, this is an empty one. This is one anonymized, where you can find already some information. I can maybe also make it a little bit bigger so that you can read what is inside. And this is the supplement, what we call the micro-credential supplement, where you have the name of the qualification, name of the course, all the element, learning outcomes, and verification of the certificate. So if you agree now, maybe we can take, let's say, 5 minutes So what the exercise is, we invite you to go on the micro evaluator tool and to try to assess robustness of information contained in this micro credential, in this certificate, in this micro credential certificate. Okay, so let's take a few minutes just to do this exercise. Let me know if you need that I enlarge a little bit the supplement, and then we will discuss your impression, how the exercise went, and your findings and comments on this. Let me know if everything is clear. If there is something to clarify, just please raise your hand or write in the chat. Okay, we can give maybe a couple of minutes more, but if you're already done, we can also close earlier.
Уважаемые участники, звук не пропал, идет практическая работа. В чате спикерами была выставлена ссылка. Заходите по этой ссылке, и это инструмент для оценивания программ. И на экране видна программа, поэтому звука нет.
Yes, thank you. I was leaving you concentrating on the exercise. That's why. Okay, let me know if you need more time or if we can start our discussion. If you manage to go through the tool, maybe Gulnara will ask you to help in understanding if we need maybe 1 minute more, or if we can start the discussion.
I'm not sure if we can know if the participants have been checked, identified. Can we see that from the document? Because there is one question on that.
Okay.
So it says in the tool, has the participant been identified? How can we tell? Also, because I see quite small. How can we tell that from the certificate?
So, okay, maybe we can how the identities identify.
Yeah. The learners, if they have been.
Okay, yes, that's, I mean, then exactly those are the questions that we can keep for the discussion. So now, let's say the exercise is to assess only what you see in the document. So if there is no the information, you can report that is no, exactly. Okay, the 5 minutes have passed. Can I stop sharing, or do you need still some time to go through the tool? Did you reach the end of the exercise of the tool, of the micro evaluator tool?
Уважаемые участники, поставьте плюсы в чате, кто сделал и готов уже. Отлично, спасибо, видим.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I have the feeling that then it's thanks for the feedback, because I don't see anyone while I'm sharing the screen, so I don't have really the perception. Okay, good, thanks. So first of all, thanks for engaging in the exercise. Of course, this more, let's say, a methodological exercise, no? But just to have a kind of hands-on approach and to see, let's say, with our eyes, let's say, how easy it is to understand information from a credential. And of course, I mean, this is important for recognition people, but also for academic teaching staff when you are designing micro-credential and let's say when you are defining what kind of information will be recorded and make accessible. Okay, so I would like now to hear from you. Did you find exercise easy? There was something that was not, I mean, first of all, I'm curious, as this is a micro-credential that we awarded, to see if it's all green, if it's all red. It would be nice to hear from you, and if the tool also you find is useful, and also if there are some elements, now coming back more also on our overall discussion, that could bring some, let's say, element to our discussion, for instance, on quality assurance, on elements needed for recognition, etc. So I see, Gulnara, I guess you will moderate this part, or because I see there is a hand raised.
Yes. Предоставляем слово Гульнар Салтанбаева, да?
Здравствуйте. Звук есть, да? Значит, для меня, я скажу, что задание было несложно выполнить. У меня были какие-то сомнения насчет, вот, как вы сказали, верификацию, так сказать, того, кто получил сертификат. Но я подумала, что в сертификате его комиссии, эта фамилия указана, поэтому на первый вопрос я написала «нет». Но на второй вопрос, который уточняющий был, я написала «да». Поэтому я думаю, что надеюсь, что там было, конечно, подтверждение, он где-то там регистрировался в этой компании, когда она проходила. Также вопрос у меня был по поводу экзаменов, тестирования. Потому что по самому сертификату невозможно определить, проходил он тестирование, не проходил. Но тем не менее в сертификате было написано «итоговый проект». Я так понимаю, что если он делает итоговый проект, значит, это была обязательно защита. Поэтому на первый вопрос насчет экзамена я поставила ответ «нет», что нету. На второй там был несколько видов тестирования использовали, я тоже не могла это определить, я написала «нет». Но на вопрос, было ли хоть одно тестирование, я написала «да», потому что я думаю, что если у него был итоговый проект, то обязательно как бы экзамен у него, наверное, проходил. Вот такие вопросы, которые, ну, как бы расширенный вопрос был. Поэтому, по-моему, на последние 3 вопроса у меня было не зелененькая, а вот одна зеленой не было, уже был другой цвет. Что я хочу сказать? Вот этот сертификат, ну, например, по последним сертификатам, которые мы сейчас, например, получаем, мы понимаем, что у нас везде используется QR-код. В данном сертификате QR-кода не было. Поэтому я думаю, что, может быть, можно его использовать, так как в QR-коде можно заложить больше информации, и эта информация будет говорить о том, зарегистрирован ли этот человек в этой организации, когда проходил курсы, насчет того, какие у него были итоговые контроли там, и так далее и тому подобное. То есть расширить информацию, доложив в сертификат QR-код. Вот мое мнение насчет этого сертификата.
Спасибо, Гульнар, за ваше мнение. Было полезно для многих участников, да? И еще, есть ли еще желающие прокомментировать?
So while we are waiting, maybe other react.
Гульзат Садырова, да? Предоставляем вам слово.
Спасибо большое. Да, вначале хочу сказать спасибо организаторам и спасибо лекторам. Здесь у меня, помимо того, что было до этого сказано, по уровню, по level, там было 6, я отметила, что это не соответствует, потому что сертификат стояла 7. И по идентификации я здесь не нашла фамилию обучающегося. Я не знаю, насколько мои ответы были прозрачны и честны, но в такие моменты я ответила, что нет. Спасибо.
Спасибо за ваш комментарий. Так, есть еще желающие?
Well, I also said I also had a red for the quality assurance part because it is not a recognized institution. So, but I mentioned that there is some kind of quality assurance arrangement. So here also I got a red.
Okay, if there are no other comments, maybe I can elaborate a little bit more on your comments. So first of all, thanks a lot. I mean, it's very, so thanks a lot for engaging in the exercise. That, as I said, it was a methodological exercise, of course. But I think your comment already touched upon some key element that we are discussing. So the first point, maybe we can start from this identification of the learner. So indeed, this is an important part, and this could lead to a red if it's not clear who is the trainee, who is the owner of the certificate. So correct is not in the diploma supplement, it's in the parchment, let's say, but this, of course, should be also in the diploma supplement. So, I mean, actually, we changed this, but it's, I mean, it's interesting to see that this was an important part. And maybe attached to this, for instance, one point is not only put the name of the trainee, but it would be interesting to have a way also to avoid the fact that another person is, let's say, unlawfully using this certificate. Of course, this is the same for any degree, not only for micro-credential. So the point will be not only to have the name of the person, but also to have a secure way to assess that the person that received the certificate is really the person that is presenting it. And this is still an issue also with digital certificate, because in Europe we have many different ways to test authenticity of the identity. So we don't have yet a unique digital tool to exchange data related to the identity of the person. There is an ongoing discussion that this is called also self-sovereignty identity, regarding the possibility for a user to share his or her document. But let's say this is let's say, key point. But now remaining on the first level of complexity, let's say it's very important, of course, that the name of the trainee is recorded. Second point, so thanks a lot also for this comment, how the assessment was carried out. So indeed, this is also something that we changed, because at the beginning we wrote project work, but indeed project work is very general. So yes, there was a defense, but this is also something that, you know, I mean, here we can see also how important is that all the information are also properly written and consistently written to make them understandable. Third comment was on QR code. So that's a very interesting comment. In this specific case, this micro-credential was awarded in blockchain, because we have a blockchain system, Diplomi, where we award our documents as an ICNARIC center. So we award there our statement of comparability for qualification, and we use this system in blockchain also to award the credential. So actually, in this case, you can verify the qualification using blockchain technology. So you don't really need QR code. However, I must say, because I mean, QR code, it can be hacked, of course, and we have many examples. Technically, we speak about what is called man in the middle, that you click on the QR code because you can generate your own QR code that link to a man in the middle page, a page that you created, where is written that, yes, I took this qualification, etc., etc. But this could be not true. So let's say QR code is not the most reliable way to check authenticity of a credential. From our side, for instance, the way we found this through blockchain technology. Anyway, we know that, I mean, not all the, let's say, not all the, for instance, recognition officers, admission officers can be familiar with the blockchain. So, for instance, in our statement of comparability, we do have QR code, actually. And we do have a link that, of course, we flag that this is kind of level 2 security, but this is not the top secure way to assess authenticity of the qualification. So that's an important point also, because when we speak about digitalization, we need to balance security, and we need to have a secure way to share documents, but we also need to be inclusive and to be methods of verification that will be accessible to everybody. And there was a final comment, yes, by Christina on the quality. Yes, so good point. Also on this, basically this is, and this is again why it's important, this exercise, no? And also let us reflect on the need also to have consistent ways to write information on micro-credentials, because for full degrees we have diploma supplement, but for micro-credential we don't have yet this consistent standard, let's say. So for instance, actually the quality assurance is internal quality assurance, it's institutional quality assurance, because it was carried out under what we call the internal QA committee of the institution. But as Christina rightly pointed out, this would be maybe not immediately clear to a non-Italian reader, no? So an Italian reader will understand in this lexicon what that is the internal quality assurance standard, but the institutional under the institutional QA, but not an international person. And maybe the last point I would like to make, let's say I was surprised that there were no comments on learning outcomes. Maybe one point that I can share also, because this is also a point that we discussed regarding in several points regarding learning outcomes, is also regarding the number of learning outcomes. How many learning outcomes we should put? I mean, this is a very practical question. How many learning outcomes in terms of number of learning outcomes we should attach to a micro-credential? If we look to the ECTS user guide that's referred to full degrees, it says that there are no rules, but that an ideal number of learning outcomes is around 10 and 12. If you look to the ECTS user guide of 2015. So it's interesting to see that there are not yet indication on how many learning outcomes we should attach to a micro-credential. 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's if we have 10, 12 for a full degrees, then we can assume that should be less at least, but not indication. So thanks. I mean, I will stop here unless there are other comments. But this was just, as I say, the kind of concrete exercise to start from the end. No? When we speak in the recognition fora, we say that your output is our input. That the output, so the final certificate, the final credential awarded by an higher education institution, is the output for the higher education institution, but is the input for a recognition process. So I think this could be also a nice way to as I said at the beginning, to self-assess and also to help us to improve the quality of information we attach to our credentials. So thanks a lot for engaging in the exercise. And I will give the floor back to Gulnara unless there are other comments or points to be discussed.
И вам спасибо огромное, Киара, за практическое задание. Я думаю, это было важно участникам закрепить полученные знания, применить, да, тоже на практике. И немножко они, конечно, оживились. Вот. И мы идем по программе дальше. У нас следующая презентация по продвижению программ микроквалификаций и обеспечению понимания, прозрачности и достоверности. Эти вопросы немного уже касались в своих презентациях спикеры, и теперь мы больше уже будем говорить, как продвигать, да, эти программы среди наших стейкхолдеров. И это объединенная презентация Киары и Кристины.
Okay, thanks, Gulnara, and I will start. Just one moment. I share again my screen. Okay. Okay, so one point, of course, and this was also the current topic, how we can promote and support, let's say, knowledge and use of micro-credential we offer. And we will tackle this from two different angles. So one is regarding how to provide information. We spoke yesterday about the importance of catalog and information system to have, let's say, on the offering of micro-credential. Here, maybe just it's useful to have some evidence from some recent study. So, for instance, according to an OECD study, approximately 70% of, let's say, state jurisdiction that answer to the survey, to this OECD Higher Education Policy Survey, 70% have or an information portal or a guidance center that allow prospective learners to have information about opportunities and learning offer for reskilling and upskilling. And of course, please take into account that in OECD, as OECD countries, we also have, for instance, US, that is a big, let's say, player when it comes to micro-credentials. So this data should be treated, let's say, with a little bit of care. But that's the result. So around 70% of jurisdiction have some kind of guidance or catalog or information portal on micro-credential. And according to this analysis made by OECD, there are two trends that emerge from this survey. One is the variety of methods in offering microcredential. The second trend is that identified examples are not comprehensive and can be specific to a single group, so for instance, to a single subject or to a single group of stakeholders, and some online portal offer additional information. So one of the challenges that OECD report is that one of the elements, of course, to develop an online portal, an online catalog, is to have a standard set of information. That's what OECD called them establishment of common descriptors. And this is exactly all the effort that we are doing at European level to have a kind of standard, to provide standard information on the microcredential. We just see how, let's say, that is less easy than we can, that we can maybe imagine at the very beginning. So to have this standardized list of descriptors would allow not only to make comparison, would allow learners not only to make comparison, but also to facilitate recognition. So again, we come back to the importance of having, first of all, transparent and agreed common standard, the constitutive element, as they are called in the Council recommendation, the European Union Council recommendation, but also, as we just saw, kind of consistent way to write the information according to this constitutive element. And this is just to see once again the list of elements, of standard elements that should be used to describe a microcredential. And as you can see in Annex 1, this is the Annex 1 of the Council recommendation, there are some mandatory elements: identification of the learner, title of the microcredential, awarding body, date of issuing, learning outcomes, etc., etc. And there are some optional that they are not, let's say, we have the must-have and the nice-to-have, but some of them, I mean, could become very relevant in some cases. So, for instance, the access requirement, so the prerequisite needed to enroll in the learning activity, the way the assessment has been supervised, and for instance, the way that identity has been supervised and has been checked during the assessment, the grade, the stackability option. This is also could be very important information, and other information that can be deemed useful. So there are a number of typologies of catalog and platform. Christina already presented yesterday a number of them, so we go a little bit quicker on this. We have, if we want to categorize them in three macro group, we can say that we have online platform-based microcredentials. Those are the biggest, like Coursera, etc. We have then national and government-supported digital learning platform. Christina yesterday showed a number of them, for instance, FAN in France, and learning platform made by single businesses or industry, so what we call corporate learning platform and microcredential offer. Some numbers, already Christina referred to this yesterday, so just to show to what extent the number of microcredential offering is growing. Since 2018 to 2023, we moved from 450 microcredentials offered on this platform to almost 3,000 microcredentials. Those are only the data from the 6 platforms mapped by this Class Central, by this aggregator of online courses. Here, just to give you a concrete example of catalogs of microcredential, you can see a few examples, one from Ireland, one from Australia, one from Canada, and one from New Zealand. So just to have also some catalog to have a look to. And now, I mean, when we prepare this workshop, we have been asked by colleagues in Erasmus Plus offices in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan to make a focus also on the role of social media. And I mean, we would like to thank also you for asking us this, because it was very interesting to see the use of social media let's say, the role of social media with regard to micro-credentials. So we will just share few evidence, few analysis, few, let's say, very pilot and very initial analysis we did, and it will be interesting to further discuss this with you. So we analyzed only LinkedIn, because of course it's considered for professional purposes one of the let's say most important social media. And there are some interesting points. So first of all, badges and micro-credential are used interchangeably. So there is no difference when looking to LinkedIn in the use of badge and micro-credential. There is very much a focus on lifelong learning, upskilling and reskilling. This is also true when navigating and surfing around LinkedIn. It's interesting to notice, to underline that LinkedIn, so one social media, is itself a micro-credential provider. So it offers micro-credential also in conjunction with other non-academic providers like a big IT company. And if you have a quick look, you will see that there are a number of purposes for which individuals and providers use social media. So if we look to individuals, basically sharing them on LinkedIn, it's a way to increase the appeal of the person for a certain job. So it's a way to increase the personal job appeal, let's say. But of course, we must say that, as we say, this was a kind of very first analysis. So, I mean, this is not a full research, and it's very difficult to have a clear map of the effective usage of micro-credential by individuals. For providers, we must record that they are mainly non-academic providers. So higher education institutions are not present or not so present for micro-credential on LinkedIn. These non-academic providers are basically selling micro-credential to support upskilling and reskilling demand. So it's also kind of give visibility to their what they offer. And let's say what they promote is also to, let's say, they promote this micro-credential as a way to reduce skill mismatch in the job market. This is also a kind of element that emerge, a kind of also narrative related to provider promoting micro-credential on LinkedIn. And then there is the role of users community, of group of experts active on LinkedIn. And here we have some experts providing advice on how to develop professional career to micro-credential. Of course, I mean, those are experts in the community. Yeah? So we should use this word with a little bit of care, let's say, of consciousness. What is quite interesting, and there is very low, let's say there is no, or if yes, very low reference to current policies on micro-credential at national and international level. I mean, some of these elements maybe comes with no surprise, but it's interesting at least to have a little bit more evidence on these elements. So those are a few examples of courses offered by LinkedIn. Can you see this is LinkedIn Learning? So some courses offered by LinkedIn, as you can see, or by LinkedIn itself, or together with some other provider. And then beyond LinkedIn, there are a number of non-academic providers, as we said, big businesses, IT especially, that have their kind of academy, and they are offering and selling, let's say, training leading to micro-credential. Okay, and I will stop here and leave the floor to Christina now for the second part. I don't know, Christina, do you want to share the screen yourself, or do you want me to?
Well, if you can do it, we just save time for not really moving now to another sharing. So, well, my comments are quite different from what we have seen before. And they are coming out of the work that the Bologna follow-up group have decided to do in this working period related to knowledge sharing about different policies and reforms that in the case of the Bologna follow-up group, are developed and approved by the ministers and then have to be implemented at the national level of the members. Larger perspective, let's say, that could, and I think it applies to no matter what level where the policies are being developed, and then they have to be implemented by the academic community. And of course, the outcome should be also acknowledged by the society, the employers, and all of those which are interested in education. In that sense, there have been developed recommendations for governments in order to enhance this knowledge sharing. And if we can move now, there is a specific reason for that. And that is the belief that if there is not enough understanding about a certain policy or a certain strategy or a certain measure that the government, let's say, would decide to put in place from the academic community, for sure there should not be, there will not be a meaningful implementation of that specific measure. Because, well, if I would speak only about quality assurance, quality assurance has impact only at the extent of practically every member of the academic community it's involved and it believes in that procedures and approaches, and that we have at the level of the institution the so-called quality culture. And we cannot, well, of course, culture is a personal thing, and it comes out of the belief of the persons that those things which are related to quality assurance in this case are really helpful and meaningful for them. So if they do not believe that, what happens is that we will have like formal implementation, of course, very nice papers, internal procedures, external procedures, but the actual impact on the quality of education would not really be there. We believe that it's very important to have a constant communication in both ways, from the authorities towards the academic community and the other way around, in which to have a common understanding and agreement, and that the academic community really is on board of all of those changes of reforms or no matter measures have to be implemented. That could very easily apply to micro-credentials. We first need to understand what is that, why it's useful, why we need them. So to be able to develop programs which are relevant for the target group, for the market, for all of those which would benefit of them. And in that sense, moving now also, the group have come up with some recommendations. I didn't put them all. I have tried a little bit to adapt them to our specific, to the specific context of our discussion. So we have tried, first of all, to kind of prove how did we got to the conclusion that those recommendations are relevant. So we have tried to present the situation. We had a survey among all kinds of stakeholders, from members to the European higher education area. And at the end, we have structured all of the actions that we have thought meaningful under several recommendations. And there are specific measures, action points to be taken by different types of stakeholders. Can be, of course, the Bologna follow-up group, but also governments, institutions, quality assurance agencies. They might have specific actions that they should be involved in. Of course, the report is going to be available online, so we can really easily share it. But just to explain a little bit, first of all, we think that there should be some structured approach, not only to implementing reforms, but also to this activity of knowledge sharing. So we thought that having national implementation plans helps, have everyone on board. Everyone has to know what they have to do and by when, and which are the responsibility of each party. So that could very easily apply to micro-credentials, set a national action plan, and that should also include activities which are, again, not only aiming at promotion or dissemination, but also to explain to have a common and a shared understanding about what micro-credentials are actually. So, so it's not only transparency, it's a little bit more than that. Also, we have thought, and I know that we have the HERES networks of experts which are in place in your countries and which are working very well. We used to have this type of networks of experts also well, let's say, the countries which are members to the Bologna process from a longer time. They were funded by funds from the European Commission at a certain point. And what we have seen now is that when the funding goes over, there are very few countries in which we still find those networks of experts. And the group have thought that it will be really very important to start those next networks again, because we see that there is still a need, not only for dissemination purposes, but also for assisting the higher education institutions in implementing the different reforms or policies which are being established. And well, somehow similar also establishing higher education hubs. And we will see later what do we mean by that. In order to have these activities constantly and well, sustainable and not to depend on resources which might come and go, like the resources dedicated to projects, an important recommendation would be for the governments to make sure that there is at least a minimal budget which is dedicated to this type of activities. And finally, the task force, the working group have developed different type of means of communication, different type of even templates, examples, descriptions of different tools that we will see also a little bit later, which could be used by the government in order to have a more diverse and adapted strategy of communication to the target group and to the way today people are related to information, because that's everywhere. And of course, we are not only reading the newspaper, but also looking on TikTok, and also in education, we kind of need to keep up with this change. So we will go a little bit further very quickly in the recommendations. Chiara, if you could go a little bit, yes. So speaking about national plans, of course, the government, the higher education authority should develop such an action plan. But we need to see what institution can do at its level. And sometimes it's not only a matter of communication with external partners, with the ministry, but also a matter of communication at the level of the institution, because we have, of course, the management or people which are involved more from, well, according to their position. But what we actually need to do is to get to every professor or to every student, which is part of the community. So really, we need to organize this type of activities at the level of the institution, and it can be different type of seminars, workshops, events, well, communicating the information on a regular basis related to the policies which are of interest at a certain point. And also communicate among the institutions at, well, I suppose that the Council of Rectors, for example, might have an important part here. So exchange, not at this level of the management, but also at the level of the members of the community, organizing events where to invite professors from different institutions across the country. So to discuss together all of those matters. If we move to the networks and to the hubs, you know already how the higher education networks of experts are working. In the document, we have tried to set again the main issues to be considered when starting this type of networks. And it's important to say that this recommendation will also be part of the communiqué, of the Tirana communiqué. So it will be very clearly stated that all countries, all members should start to organize such networks of experts as the most important recommendation that that group have found that should be put in place immediately by all members. And here, the experts have only, should perform activities which are starting from spread knowledge until discussing with the academic community and then liaise with the authorities, sharing the point of views, all kinds of suggestions that should be embedded in the policy making activity at the national level. Also, they can be mentors. They should train higher education institutions representative to promote different best practices at the national level, and also coming from the international expertise to perform peer learning activities, and also we have seen that it's very important for them to be part of networks at regional or international level, so not to work only at the national level. As higher education, of course, it's a matter of international collaboration. Moving to the hubs, that should be different structures which can be set at the national level or at the level of institutions, in which different type of stakeholders can get together and discuss different policies or reforms or actions or legislative changes which are happening in the country. For example, well, as you know, the Bologna follow-up group, it gets together a representative of the countries, of different stakeholder organizations representing quality assurance agencies, students, institutions, so employers. And there are a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but there are countries which are replicating this kind of structure at the national level. So you would have like a national level Bologna follow-up group, which is discussing and following all the decisions that the ministers have been taken, but also are a structure of consulting all stakeholders when different policies are being developed. So again, it's not unidirectional, but it should be bidirectional. So to bring the voice of the academic community there where the policies are being made, because of course they have to implement them, so they have to be heard. And this type of structure can be also set at the level of an institution, getting together internal and external actors to discuss on everything that is important related to the life of that higher education institution. Moving to the resources, as I said already, this can come from different type of projects at national level, financed at national level, international level. It might make really sense to collaborate with other countries or with other organizations set beyond the regional level in order to share experience, but it will be advisable to also have this type of funding at the national level by the government or the higher education authority, or however this is possible. Also, in order to provide the possibility for institutions to join this type of consortium to build projects, it is important to have capacity building activities that teach, train academic community members in applying for these funds, because they might be available, but we also need to be able to get it and to correctly implement them. And moving also to the last point, I think, there are a lot of tools out there, and that means I think that we should use them all. So starting from websites or other type of platforms, which should be really very well developed and accessible with all the needed information, and that can be at the level of the institution for the community, but also the ministry or the Erasmus agencies. Well, a first prerequisite will be to have this information on a website, but people might not go on the website a lot. And then we also see this is true for the website of the European higher education area. It's mainly, I mean, the proportion of actors going there is really very low. So it might be helpful to set newsletters or mailing lists to send information to your academic community members. But here, of course, you need to be very careful how to develop this newsletter to be of enough quality with the relevant information, and also to happen constantly. So to have a certain number of numbers that are being delivered yearly. The social media, it's also for disseminating information about the higher education programs. So and there are different type of channels which have to be used. It's LinkedIn for the professionals, but I don't know, students might be more on Twitter or well, on TikTok or another. So we also have to be there, and also organize different type of events. Again, the national level with your academic community members, with other institutions, get together and discuss and explain different issues which are of interest at a certain point, but also do not ignore video content or even podcasts. Students prefer to look or to listen than to read texts, and not only them, I would say. So like everything that it's important, produce a video or start a series of podcasts in, I don't know, 10 episodes in which invite different important stakeholders for different at different episodes. All of those types of dissemination tools have been developed in the document that I have mentioned. And they would be available online. There are even examples of, there is an example, for example, of an event, for an event on micro-credentials. So who to invite, which would be the program, what questions to answer to. So we think that they are quite useful, and you might get nice ideas from there. Also, we have set a YouTube channel, so there you can find resources related to the Bologna process, how that was started, and also different interviews. It's at the beginning, so there are not very many, but we really hope that in the future we'll be able to come up with also other materials. That, I think, it's all I wanted to say. Again, it's not only about dissemination, but it's a lot about being on the same boat, if I may say so. And we really believe that this is really crucial for the meaningful implementation of anything. No matter how good it was set and developed, you need everyone which is involved to be on the same page, to really understand, to believe in it, let's say, in order to have a meaningful implementation. Thank you.
Спасибо огромное нашим спикерам Киаре и Кристине. Теперь логически мы подошли к завершающей части нашего семинара на основе всей полученной информации, какие есть перспективы и что мы можем сделать на наших национальных уровнях для продвижения, для внедрения микроквалификации и для развития этого направления. Да? И теперь я открываю панельную дискуссию, в которой могут принимать участие все. Да? И давайте обсудим вопросы, что можно можно сделать на нашем уровне. И следующие вопросы обсуждаются для обсуждения. Это обсуждение перспектив и рекомендаций к политике, роль микроквалификации в долгосрочном экономическом развитии Центральной Азии и рекомендации для наших правительств, высших учебных заведений и работодателей. Наша команда подготовила драфт, черновой вариант рекомендаций, перспектив. Я их, наверное, выведу на экран. И вы пока подумайте и можете поднимать руки и комментировать, добавлять свои тоже предложения. Итак, уважаемые участники, я немножко пролистну, да. Перспективы для министерства и государства – это признание изменяющихся потребностей рабочей силы. Министерства и государственные органы должны признать быстро меняющийся характер отраслей промышленности и растущий спрос на конкретные навыки вместо традиционных степеней. Следующая перспектива – это фокус на обучение на протяжении всей жизни. Принятие концепции обучения на протяжении всей жизни. Ну, если эта концепция уже есть, да, например, в Республике Казахстан, то ее доработка и признание микроквалификации как важного компонента поддержки непрерывного развития навыков на протяжении карьеры индивидуума. Согласование с национальными целями развития, да, чтобы соответствовало национальным стратегиям развития, интеграция продвижения микроквалификации в национальные стратегии развития для стимулирования экономического роста, инноваций и конкурентоспособности. Ну и поддерживающая, регулирующая среда, установление четких регулятивных кадров для аккредитации программ микроквалификации, чтобы обеспечить качество и доверие на образовательном и рынке труда. Так. Для университетов тоже перспектива – это по адаптации к изменяющимся образовательному ландшафту, проектирование, дизайн, да, учебных планов, программ, партнерство и сотрудничество и обеспечение качества. Для Киары и Кристины я сейчас скину перевод в общий чат, да, этих слайдов. И для работодателей. Перспективы признания навыков, поддержка развития сотрудников, сотрудничество с образовательными учреждениями. Ну и на следующих слайдах у нас рекомендации. Для министерства это разработка национальной политики или обновление национальной политики и механизма финансирования для стимулирования разработки и внедрения программ микроквалификаций, содействие культуре обучения на протяжении всей жизни, развитию навыков, создание централизованного реестра или платформы для аккредитованных программ микроквалификации, обеспечивая прозрачность и доступность для обучающихся. Так. Для университетов рекомендации инвестирования в подготовку и развитие преподавательского состава, чтобы снабдить педагогов необходимыми навыками, знаниями для разработки и реализации программ микроквалификаций, использование технологических обучающих платформ для предоставления программ микроквалификаций в гибких форматах, учитывая разнообразные потребности и предпочтения обучающихся. Ой, извиняюсь. И для работодателей рекомендации участия в постоянном диалоге с образовательными учреждениями и государственными органами для обсуждения потребностей отраслей в навыках и информирования о дизайне программ микроквалификации, предоставления признания и возможности карьерного роста для сотрудников, получивших соответствующие микроквалификации. Это черновой вариант, да, сейчас я их выложу тоже в общем чате. Это текст для вашего обсуждения, что-то можно добавить, убрать и так далее. И я бы хотела предоставить первое слово Серику Мауленовичу для комментирования перспектив и рекомендаций для вот Республики Казахстан или для Центральноазиатского региона в целом.
Добрый день, коллеги. Я приношу свои извинения. Я вот буквально недавно присоединился, поэтому можно будет, я пока сейчас войду в курс дела, ознакомлюсь до конца со всеми этими и в конце потом присоединюсь.
Хорошо. Но на этом работа нашего семинара не заканчивается. Да, по результатам этого семинара у нас будет рабочий документ, поэтому можно после завершения семинара разошлем его для обсуждения, да, Серик Мауленович, и можно еще внести изменения. Дорогие участники, кто-то еще хочет прокомментировать, выразиться, сказать свою обратную связь? Поднимайте руки, пожалуйста, мы откроем вам микрофон. Так, где ваши руки? Так, Калыс Нагайбаева, да, подняла руку. Пожалуйста, вам слово.
Добрый день, коллеги. Добрый день, Гульнара, дорогие наши спикеры. Большая благодарность за предоставленную информацию. Я представляю Кыргызскую государственную медицинскую академию и, ну, вообще, как бы программа микроквалификации в медицинской среде. Вот я 2 дня слушаю и стараюсь приложить сразу к нашему направлению. Есть, конечно, уже кое-какие идеи, будем прорабатывать, будем как бы инициировать и думать. Но, тем не менее, вот на сегодняшний день я получила очень хорошую информационную платформу. И благодарна всем спикерам, рассказали от начала, да, и вот даже как определить качество, и очень много новых компетенций. Большое спасибо. Вопросов, у меня больше комментариев было, благодарность. Вопросов у меня пока нет, так как вопросы будут тогда, когда начнем эту инициативу поднимать. Если будут, конечно, потом вопросы, я думаю, буду обращаться. Спасибо.
Спасибо за комментарий. Так, кто у нас следующий? Так, 2 участника. Давайте Юля Новицкая, да? Если я правильно произношу.
Да.
Извините.
Ничего страшного, я привыкла, меня все время так называют. Я представляю Казахстанско-американский свободный университет, то есть Каменогорский, я заведующий кафедрой иностранных языков. Мы вчера уже в группе, когда в комнатах обсуждали, поделились кое-какими впечатлениями о семинаре, о том, насколько применимо, поговорили по поводу работодателей, что они у нас пока не готовы принимать микроквалификации. Во всяком случае, не по всем специальностям. Серик Мауленович тогда правильно сказал, что у информационщиков, может быть, и готовы, а, допустим, у учителей школы никогда не примут сертификата микроквалификации, но это другой вопрос. Это к тому, что у нас еще нет регулирующей законодательной какой-то базы. Пока ее не будет, у нас все и будет в таком приблизительном наживленном состоянии. Я хотела присоединиться к предыдущему говорящему, и у меня нет вопросов тоже. Для них еще рано. Это надо переварить эту информацию и начать работать. Тогда вопросы появятся. Я хотела сказать, я начала заполнять Google форму, и хотела сказать, что также благодарю спикеров за очень качественный и подробный материал. Я могу сказать, что все, что здесь мы слышали, оно очень применимо. Мы уже начали обсуждать вчера с коллегами, как можно свои специальности, свои образовательные программы развернуть так, чтобы там были микроквалификации. Но я даже кроме этого, я очень благодарна участникам за ресурсы, которые вы нам предоставили. Я, например, веду такую дисциплину, как в сущности организация высшего образования в магистратуре, Nature and Function of Higher Education. И мы рассматриваем, как высшее образование работает. И мне документы, которыми поделились наши спикеры, очень интересно показались. Например, там вот эти microballs и документ Beyond Limits, который нам вчера показывали, очень интересно и для будущих наших сотрудников высшего образования, которых мы готовим. Поэтому спасибо большое не только за ваши презентации, но и за ресурсы, которые вы нам дали.
Спасибо, Юля. Спасибо вам тоже за ваше активное участие, за ваши вопросы. Следующее предоставляю слово Абдыбеку Асаналиеву.
Благодарить Гульнару и вашу команду, которые быстро эти рекомендации подготовили. Они очень хорошие. Ну, надеюсь, что рабочие группы, которые будут созданы в наших университетах, они будут с вами хорошо работать. Единственное, я хотел сказать, что когда мы будем делать свою работу, начнем свою работу, нам нельзя отклоняться от принципа Болонского процесса. И вот когда презентацию делали, Кристина или кто, я заметил один документ хороший, называется OECD Higher Education Policy Survey, 2002 год. И мы в своей работе руководствовались вот такими хорошими документами, да, от Европейской организации сотрудничества и развития, да, и чтобы мы свою политику синхронизировали вот с такими хорошими документами, да, чтобы мы чаще как бы не насыщали своими местными изобретениями, да. Потом еще я хотел сказать, что мы соседние страны, особенно в сельском хозяйстве, у нас очень много общих проблем. И Казахстана, и Кыргызстана, и других стран, да. И поэтому мы будем, когда будем реестры разрабатывать какие-то вещи, да, будем, я надеюсь, иншалла, да, и будем вместе работать с вами. Спасибо.
Спасибо огромное за обратную связь, за ваше активное участие и поддержку. Следующий, кто у нас хочет выступить? Гульзат Садырова, да, пожалуйста.
Так, громкость нормальная, да, меня хорошо слышно? Да, Гульнара, большое спасибо. Действительно, больше пожеланий, нежели вопросов, потому что вопросы, они возникнут уже в ходе имплементации. Мы представляем Кыргызский национальный аграрный университет, и мы вот в течение этих 2 дней у себя в ВУЗе тоже определяли, что микроквалификации, они для нас важны и нужны, потому что это уже веление времени. Мы должны, как университет 4.0, адаптироваться под них и постараться уже сделать имплементацию микроквалификации. Как это будет? Да, вот, во-первых, надо прорабатывать курсы, прорабатывать нормативно-правовую базу. Потом надо продумать механизмы, как это мы будем делать офлайн, это смешанный формат, или это будет полностью онлайн, сколько кредитных часов туда будет закладываться. И еще надо продумать устойчивость этих курсов. То есть вопросов сейчас очень много, но желание внедрить тоже большое. Спасибо вам, спасибо спикеру.
Так, спасибо огромное за ваш комментарий. Так, у нас больше нет желающих, да? Насчет нормативно-правовой базы в обеих республиках сейчас идет активная работа, да, в Республике Казахстан под руководством Серика Мауленовича уже есть наработки, да, которые он вчера презентовал. В нашей Кыргызской республике у нас Светлана Рустамовна задействована, опыта еще действительно очень мало, но есть главное намерение и желание двигаться по этому направлению дальше. И самое интересное, что вчера были 3 презентации от казахских университетов, которые уже реализуют, да, эти программы микроквалификации, поэтому было очень полезно с практической точки зрения посмотреть, да, как они реализуют на местах эти программы. Также мы послушали европейскую модель, да, как это там происходит, как происходит оценка этих программ. И очень хорошо, что у наших основных двух спикеров, леди, есть практический опыт работы, да, по этим направлениям, потому что Кристина возглавляет президентом является румынского агентства по аккредитации и качеству, да, поэтому это тот как раз человек, который может рассказать, да, о качестве внешней, внутренней, да, системе, поэтому было очень интересно. По поводу Киары тоже были очень много дано материалов, да, практических. И напомню, что она является заместителем директора информационного центра академической мобильности и эквивалентности. Да? И мы очень благодарны двум нашим спикерам, Киаре и Кристине, за действительно детальную, подробную презентацию. И так как у наших участников вы поняли, что у них нет вопросов, потому что это новое для них, они очень много послушали, и теперь, когда в процессе реализации начнется процесс, тогда появятся новые вопросы. Но для первого введения, наверное, это действительно очень большой пласт информации, который нужно переработать. И по завершению семинара мы участникам разошлем драфт, черновой вариант, вот рекомендаций и перспектив, да, которые в общем чате я выложила на английском языке и на русском языке были на слайде. Прошу всех участников внести свои предложения, изменения, комментарии, если у вас будут, да, и мы представим рабочий документ по завершению этого семинара. Так, кто там? Вот, и тогда на этом мы завершим наш двухдневный семинар, если у вас нет, да, больше вопросов и комментариев. И я начну, наверное, завершение нашего семинара со слов благодарности. В первую очередь хотелось бы выразить благодарность Восточно-Казахстанскому техническому университету имени Даулета Серикбаева за предоставленную платформу, да, за техническую поддержку, за команду. Спасибо вам огромное, все было отлично. Большая благодарность нашим двум основным спикерам, красивым леди Киаре и Кристине за их презентации. Их презентации были на английском языке, и я получила комментарий, что было бы хорошо перевести на русский язык и вам переслать. Да? Мы сделаем это, и по тем электронным адресам, которые вы указали при регистрации, мы разошлем эти презентации на русском языке. Также Восточно-Казахстанский технический университет сказал, что по имейлам вам разошлет запись этих двух семинаров, да, полную в Zoom, поэтому вы можете потом не спеша еще раз просмотреть эти семинары. И большая просьба всем участникам пройти по линку, да, в Google и заполнить Google анкету о качестве проведения данного семинара. Мы тоже заботимся о качестве наших мероприятий и хотим получить вашу обратную связь, насколько это было полезно и хорошо прошло, и что нужно улучшить. И также большая благодарность нашим переводчикам. Я надеюсь, вас устроил их уровень, да, качество перевода с английского на русский, с русского на английский языки. Им тоже большая благодарность за интенсивный труд. Ну и, дорогие участники, вам большая благодарность за ваше терпение, за ваше участие, за то, что вы с нами, за то, что вы являетесь частью наших мероприятий. Ждем вас на следующих наших семинарах. В Кыргызстане это у нас уже 5-й семинар, да, в Казахстане это 2-й семинар. В общем, ждем вас дальше на наших мероприятиях. Организаторами этого семинара являются 2 офиса Erasmus. Это в Казахстане, Лаура Полянова, и наш офис в Кыргызстане. Поэтому я думаю, у нас еще будет дальше совместные мероприятия. Всем большая благодарность. До свидания. Так.